3 months, I went to 2 events. I went to an event in Orlando, and I went to an event in Providence, Rhode Island. One catered to Subject 2. The other one was a multifamily / mastermind. And it was such a letdown going to the event in Orlando because the content was terrible. It was absolute dog shit. And the other one in Providence there was some value there. So I made a pact to myself that when I do present, whenever I do talk and share my story or share how to do a topic, I'm gonna go deep and I'm gonna leave you guys with something impactful. And if it sucks, let me know in the hallway, say, dude, marry your shit, it was horrible. Because that's my value. If you're gonna come here on a sunny day and spend time with me, it better be worth your freaking time. That's the way I look at it. I'll put myself in your shoes that you're gonna leave here with something that is of value and you're saying, you know what, I learned something from this guy, okay? I broke my presentation down into 4 different components. First one's Sub 2. Breakdown is more of how we packaged it. Structure is some of the different structures of how you can be customizable. It's creative finance is also custom finance. So you have to hear creative all the time, but it's really custom. You got to customize each deal to the specifics of the situation that's going on. And the final thing is this is about you. This is about, I put this together about your vantage point, what you need to learn, and what is best for someone that's never done a Subject 2 deal, okay? In order for me to share a little bit about how you guys can benefit from this, I just want to tell you very briefly about me so you guys can relate and understand that I'm a person that can do this and it makes sense. You can go to the next slide. And I'll be quick.
I'll be the quicker.
Yeah. This first picture is a picture of me when I was 5 years old that my mom took of me. And as you can see, these are not living conditions that you would want to have your kids. I have a 2-year-old son, so I would never want to have a picture taken of me like that. But my mom had it in a photo album that I think she obviously thought was great. This is a picture of the front of the house and the back of the house. As you can see, this is not normal. It shouldn't be like a chain link fence. We get a chain link fence. That was the back of the house. This is my mom and me. I did corporate America for 10 years. And during the 10 years, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my mom would go to dialysis. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, what I would do was, it was like a big event for my mom. I would take her out with me on sales calls. She would co-pilot, she would sit next to me, she would talk to me, we would listen to her 80s music that she loved, and we would hang out. And then this is me today. But to tie all this stuff together, there was a lot of gaps. There was a lot of gaps in between here to get to the end, or continue to keep going. Inside of those gaps are information. It's information that's either valuable or it's wasteful. So that's the key part of what I'm trying to put together for you guys, to know what waste that you hear, get rid of it quickly, and valuable information you actually cling to and use. If you can go to the next slide. This is for your story. Like I said, I put myself in your shoes because I go to so many events. I've listened to a million self-help books, and half of them, they run you in circles, and the shit doesn't make sense when it's over. You have to fill the gaps with actual impactful education and not use wasteful information. The depths of the information and the layers of the mentors out there, those are the things that you have to hold on to. You can't go wide. The wider someone explains things, the less to me they know. The deeper they go, the more they know, because they know every single thing. And usually the guys that actually lose money, they're the ones that knows the most, whether they're homeless or they're a gazillionaire. So those are guys that really know their shit. You're here to learn real estate, creative finance. We're going to get into that. This is something, ACAA, that I think is something that I've endorsed when I was a basketball player, when I worked corporate sales, just everything I've done in life is taking action, getting criticism. Criticism is a word that I think people frown upon now, but criticism is good. You need constructive criticism. You need someone to tell you, dude, you don't know how to make sales calls. You suck. You are lazy. You need someone to tell you this stuff. You got to make an adjustment, period. If there's no adjustment, you're never going to be successful, and then you got to take action again. Very simple formula. Action, criticism, adjustment, action. Those are the 4 keys. For you, sitting in your seat, you can obviously tell I don't do fluff. This is not easy. This business is not easy when you're doing creative finance. You're gonna have to look at a lot of deals. You're gonna have to run math. You're gonna have to watch YouTube videos of people that actually do deals and see how you can package them. So it's not just gonna accidentally happen, this stuff, overnight. You have to work that muscle. And the one thing I would tell you is try to just take 2 to 3 things away from this. You're not going to take a gazillion things away, but if there's 2 or 3 things that you really like, circle it and try to implement it into what you're doing here with Sub 2. Like I said, the gold is in the depth. The deeper you go, you'll find that treasure chest that you're looking for. The gold is in the depth of information. Okay. Now we're going to get to the fun stuff. Sub 2. So you can go to YouTube University. I've started a YouTube channel recently, but there's a lot of guys that have great communication skills on Sub 2. The main person is Pace Morby. I think he's the most efficient communicator in Subject 2. I would say check out his channel, he's amazing. Anytime you do Sub 2, your first thought is an exit. You need an exit strategy when you're doing any deal, period. These are the exits that I've done every single one of these exits in a Sub 2. And I can tell you that these are what you need to think of first, of saying, how can I put this deal together and what exit strategy can I take? The first exit is a rental. There's a short-term rental, a mid-term rental, and a long-term rental. Short-term rental, think Airbnb. Mid-term rental is super popular now, think traveling nurses. And then long-term is your traditional tenant, okay? House hacking. That could be you living on one side of a duplex and then renting out the other side. House hacking could be, I've done it with my personal home. You can do Sub 2 and then eventually refinance the property and then cashing out the seller. Okay, that's what a Sub 2 is with your house hacking. A hybrid. A hybrid is taking the property on Subject 2. How you guys doing? Taking on a property Sub 2 and then flipping the property. This could be extremely lucrative if you know how to do the math correctly. Extremely lucrative. A real estate wrap. You may have never heard of a real estate wrap, or you may have. Real estate wrap is when you have a seller Sub 2, and then you have a tenant buyer on the back end. Okay, tenant buyer, or we call them rent-to-own buyers. This is my favorite strategy of all, just so you know. I love real estate wraps. You can also wholesale or assign a Subject 2 deal. You can do that, okay? And you also can wholesale or sell to a note buyer or wrap. If you actually do a wrap, you can sell it to a note buyer. Usually these are financial institutions or really wealthy people. My wife actually wholesaled a wrap of ours to somebody, and it was extremely lucrative because the numbers were just insane for the note buyer, and they just needed to store their cash somewhere. You'd be surprised by how some people will just store their cash because they love the deal so much. But yeah, that's the exits. Next one, please. Thank you. Creative or custom financing is only two things. I think people overcomplicate it. It's only two things. It is the seller situation and it's math. That's all it is, guys. Just two things, very simple. Seller situation is always their motivation, their pain, the issues. Can you customize it to the seller scenario? And you must put yourself in their shoes. If there is no situation, you don't have Sub 2. You just automatically cancel it out. It doesn't mean it's for them. And then the math. The math comes into play, which is something that, as I said, you have to keep working your craft on it, but it's very easy after you underwrite deals over and over again. Okay. All right, so this is my favorite part. If you talk directly to a seller, these are the questions I would take a picture of, write down. Believe me, this is gold right here. This is the burger sauce, guys. Seriously, this is burger sauce. Questions when you speak to a seller. This is the number one question, just real estate, period. Why are you selling the house? Why are you selling the house? It's so simple. It's extremely simple. When you find out the why, you'll know where to navigate the waters. Second question. This is the most important Subject 2 question. This is absolutely the most important Subject 2 question. Do you currently have a balance on your property? Or on that property or the property? That's the way I phrase it. Because if they say yes, light bulb should go off Sub 2 immediately, because the mortgage means Sub 2. I can give you a quick example, which I won a deal from a bunch of wholesalers, and it's unfortunate because I pride myself on training my sales guys. There was a lead sitting in my CRM for about 8 months, collecting dust. Couldn't believe it. And kept seeing this lead, and it was in Blackwood, and I love Blackwood. I think it's a great market. And I called a lady, and she immediately says, I'm not taking a low ball offer. She threw me for a loop right out of the gate. I said, hold up, let's talk. Everybody's coming in low. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a balance on your property? She said, yeah, I do. I said, all right, what's the balance? She said, 110. I said, all right, where's everybody coming in at? She said, $70,000. So no crap, she can't take that. Of course she can't take it. I'm like, ding, ding. I said, I tweaked the way I said it because I've done a million of these calls. I told the lady, I said, if I took over that debt, are you cool with walking away from the property? She didn't want it. She said, I'm in, but let me talk to my husband. 3 hours later, she signed it, and I wholesaled it. to the title company I used to use. The owner of the title company. But that's how crazy it was within asking one question, just one question. You have to know how to navigate by asking simple questions. And the third question, I think this is gold as well, and this is where the math comes into play. Do you have a net number you want to walk away with? Because if they have a mortgage of say 110 and the lady's, you know what, I just want a net $5,000. You can either pay the $5,000 or back to the creative stuff. Say, how about I take the $5,000 and we spread it out monthly over the next year? You're able to like make the numbers work. That's where the math stuff comes into play. That's where I want your gears to turn on it, because it just comes down to these simple questions. We can go into, like I said, the depth of it, but we're going to keep it here because then it turns into a crazy seminar. Next one.
And we'll do some more of that in the future.
Yeah. Seller scenarios. These are the scenarios I were dealt. There could be more. People are in the rears on their mortgage. That means they owe maybe 2 months, 3 months. There was people that I've taken on that owe a year plus. That could be possible. They're moving out of state. I've had a VA, a veteran. He was moving out of state, relocating, bought it at the top of the market, moved out of state. Divorce, that's very common. Loss of employment, naturally, that's a big one. Need a bigger space. We actually had an amazing property in Gloucester City, sub 2, because his daughter moved back into the place and he needed 1 extra bedroom. And he didn't have enough money to fix the place up. So he just wanted to get rid of it some way and he couldn't figure it out. The sub 2 made sense for the guy. A 2-story home and they needed a 1-story home. Older people, they can't go up and down steps, so they just want a 1-story rancher. That works out good. They need equity fast. That comes down to math. And then addictions. That's another one. Oh, cool. This is where my prop comes into play. All right. People, I'd say sellers, this is where they get funny about transferring the deed. You need the deed in these deals. You can't just say, I'm doing sub 2. Sub 2 only exists when the deed goes to your possession and you own it. That's the key to sub 2. How do you do it legally? Okay. If you're geeky and you want to know exactly all the details of it, just Google the St. Germain Act. St. Germain Act was passed by Congress and it allows you to transfer ownership to a living trust. Okay. That's a law. With the St. Germain Act, it allows you to transfer ownership to a living trust. And you could be the trustee of the living trust. The seller, quote unquote, is still alive and the ownership gets transferred to the trustee. The grantor of the home is the homeowner and you're the trustee of this property. That's how it works, okay? You take the property, you put it in a living trust. Generally what we do to keep it clean and simple for the seller to feel comfortable, we'll say 123 Main Street is the property address. We'll call it 123 Main Trust. And then in the trust, which is this case right here, we're gonna put this property in this trust and that's it, right there. When the trust is recorded, you are the trustee and you take 100% ownership of it. When you have the trust, you do not present the trust in the beginning. You don't throw up on yourself and tell them all about the trust in the beginning. You wait until you go to the closing table and then they have to put these documents together and sign them because they agreed to sub 2. There's also like third-party authorization forms that they're gonna sign off on, allowing you to pay the mortgage for them. Super important. It's all in the trust. You're probably asking, how the hell do I find this guy to do the living trust? I have an attorney that just reach out to me. I'll share his information. He's in Cherry Hill. He's also in PA. And he's amazing. He does a great job. His name's Joe Consul. And he does all these living trusts. He's hip to sub 2. He can talk to other lawyers. He'll probably charge you, obviously, if you need him to talk to a lawyer or the seller directly. But he's tremendous with this stuff. But yeah, that's the workaround is the living trust.
Does he do New York as well? Do you know?
I don't believe so. But he should know somebody in his field. Yeah. But he's good. He's very
Because there are a lot of people from New York asking.
Yeah.
Because in New York, we have attorney state, essentially anything above Princeton and into North Jersey, into New York. Because after Princeton and down into parts of PA, it's all title. You don't need an attorney. You could get an attorney, but you don't need an attorney.
Yeah.
And the challenge is that happens a lot of times is that when I talk to people from New York, is that attorneys are there to kill the deal because they don't understand. I'm constantly getting requests for an attorney that understands these kind of things.
And it's the same thing with subject to deals. The deal gets killed as well with title companies that are not educated on it. Pretty Title, they're a gigantic brand. If they're okay with it, all these small ones that I used to call around to, they are like, there's no effing way, I won't touch it. Like, they're terrified of this stuff. Like, they are. It's good to have their support and the brand behind it, that you have somebody that's willing to do it and they're trustworthy. When I talk to guys in the Subject 2 group, even in Central Jersey, like, there's not a lot of like title companies that are willing to touch this stuff. I've talked to them and I tell them to come down here and stuff, but they get jammed up too on the deals. But that's pretty important. A lot of people get confused with this stuff, and when you talk to sellers, without over explaining it, you would put it in a trust so everybody's protected. And if you don't pay the mortgage and stuff, the property's going to default back to them, and it's in writing and it lays it all out in the agreement. You can go on the next one. Sub 2 deal structure costs. Okay. People ask this a lot. I get this often from people about what's the typical cost when you get a 0 down deal. There is a cost. It's not really 0 down. It's a lie. If you hear 0 down, there's no way. It's usually 3 to 10 grand. I would always budget 3 months reserves of the mortgage payment if it's vacant, because you're gonna have to fill it, figure out your plan, your exit from the beginning. There's also closing costs. You have to factor in closing costs with the title company. You have to factor in attorney fees for the documents for the sub 2 trust. And then there's also transfer tax that could be considered closing costs as well. I didn't put it up here, but that's a cost. Cost on the low end, I would budget about 3 grand. On the high end, saying there is no renovation needed, could be 10 grand. Think of that stuff when you start thinking sub 2. It does cost something. Never free. Okay, the next one. These are some HUDs. I want to show you HUDs, what it looks like, and then how, when you go to closing, where there's a cost here that's due from, say, me, the borrower, and what they would look like from a title standpoint. I want to give you the case study in the background of this deal and how we constructed it. And this is how wild this business is. This lady saw me posting stuff on Facebook of just me flipping properties and just that I'm active in real estate. She was actually friends with me for 4 years. 4 years, this woman. And her name's Connie. She inboxed me and she said, Mario, can you call me? I need to talk to you. And I had a feeling it was something, she was probably jammed. I called the lady and she told me that she was in the rears of her property and she was living there, but she didn't have the money to keep up with the maintenance of the home. I'm listening to all these things that is going on in her life. And I told the woman, I said, what if I take over your mortgage, cover the debt in the rears, and then rent it back to you? And she got choked up and she said, you know what? That's exactly what I was hoping you would say. Well, that's how the sub 2 worked. To think about it, you're like, why would you rent it back to a person that can't pay her own mortgage? I found out, like I said, I asked more questions. I asked her, what's going on? Who's else is involved in this property? She's like a grandmother. She's like, I got my kids that live here. I got this and this, and I got money coming in. We had the little mini powwow in her living room with her 2 kids and her daughter that stays there, and they all have jobs. One drives for Lyft, the other one's DoorDash, and they all have money. It's crazy. They're not helping her out. So we're having a conversation with Connie and the family members. Dude, you guys got to help your grandmother out. She's about to lose a house. I'm coming in to help her out. You need to be more involved and active financially. They all worked out a plan to contribute while she was getting money from the state and all. This happened the day before Thanksgiving, right? It was the day before Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but she's been great ever since, and it worked out tremendously. But it was just asking questions. It was really just being natural and finding out what was going on, and then seeing if there was a solution to the situation. And there was. We worked it out for the lady. And most people, they just need some breathing room around now. Like these sub 2 deals, man, these people are jammed up. Inflation is real, like on this level, it's a real thing. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Next one. This is what a living trust looks like. We blanked it out, but this is the cover of it. A settler will be the person, and then I am the trustee. That's what it would look like here. 10 knows what this looks like too. This is about like 18 pages. It's thick, it's lengthy, yeah. But you feel comfortable when you have it.
Oh, it's so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's proof of concept. When you have it and you know it, your mindset's different towards it. The settler's here, and then you're the trustee, and then there's also other documents inside of it. I don't want to lay it all out there, but there are other documents that give you the ability to pay the mortgage, and they share it with the lender. Everything's good. Everything's good on that.
For this situation, do you take power of attorney, or is that through the trust that you have access to the power of attorney?
It's limited.
Okay.
Yeah, it's limited based on just the property, and you have control of the asset. That's it. Yeah. Next one. This one, I want to go through the scenario here. This was someone that always asked me for help, and he had a guy that the realtor listed this on the MLS for $280, and it was sitting on the MLS for over 4 or 5 months. It was a long time, and the seller was a young veteran. He was a young veteran. He was moving to Connecticut, and he had to sell it at $280 because with paying real estate commissions and closing costs, he didn't have any money to come to the table. His bottom line was $280, period. We were able to connect with the realtor. He connected me with the realtor. We chatted, and I asked the realtor, I said, if we're able to give him some moving money, cover the balance, he doesn't have to come to the table with any money, we'll give you some scratch to get this deal to get done. What do you think? And he's let me talk to my client. Naturally, he's going to share it with his client because he wants to get paid and not have the listing sit forever. That's why this HUD's in front of you. And it happened at the beginning of the year. We did this deal. This was actually, this kind of ties into Dennis. I met someone online. This is how crazy the internet is. I met a guy online. I said, hey, could I borrow some cash for a deal? He's like, how much you need? I was like, 18 grand. He wires the 18 grand to the title company, and I gave him some interest on the money, and I told him my exit on it. He loved the whole strategy. He's never heard of this. This is cool. Wired 18 grand to the title company, and I'll let Dennis explain the different ways of protecting your money with the title company, and that's why 18's there. There was actually these, you could see these were assignment fee. I paid the person who brought me the deal, this here, paid the realtor here an assignment fee, and then the credit to the seller. This was my fees. I was about 13 grand in on this deal. Even though it says 4, I actually got 4 grand back from the deal. I got back money. I did it on purpose that way. I asked him for 18. I got back 4, but I had a loan with an outside person on Facebook and paid him back, and it's been awesome. He's actually funding the deal tomorrow. That we should close. Yeah, same guy. He loves the deals. I have another sub-2 deal I'm closing with him tomorrow. I think we will. I don't know. Next one. Same thing. Documents are identical. The lawyer is making a killing because they're all boilerplates. He just changes the name, and he just charges a lot of money. It's really simple with this guy. But yeah, that's it on that. Same thing. And this is a good one. I'm not funny, but this was requested for me to take this picture. If you want to take a picture of this, there's a QR code. I made like a little ebook that you can get for free, and it explains what a real estate sandwich is. Totally different strategy. Not going to get into it, but it gives you seller situations, 3 different deals that I did on a real estate sandwich. It breaks down how it works with a seller, how it works with a buyer. If you're real estate and you have more of an understanding, it's a book to read for you because you'll understand how it's packaged. If you're brand new, it's going to be foreign language to you. It's a little more advanced, and it'll definitely connect the dots for you. But yeah, that's this. I'm pretty much done. And then I wanted to bring Dennis in and share what I mentioned about the HUD, where there's a lot of stuff with the capital raising, which is insane, that you can lend from small amounts, big amounts. You can earn incredible interest on your money, and it could be funding deals like this.
I do that, by the way, just FYI.
Oh, you lend on those deals?
Yeah.
Yeah.